Welcome to the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. My name is Paul Deligro, your host today, and my guest is Georges Cordoba. He's an author. I have the book right here in my hands of a book called Beating the Odds, My Journey Through Holistic Health to Overcome Advanced Cancer. So, George, I do try to read every book when I have authors, and I did read yours, and I was quite moved by it. So I guess my first question is, and I always ask this of authors, why'd you write the book?
Very simple. I wrote the book, and when I had the idea of doing it, I still have that note. It says, well, if only one person reads it, I did my job. I wrote the book to give people hope that they can actually survive. They can heal themselves from the inside out. It's not necessary to just, which is tough because, the mind really, one of the rules of the mind is that we go to what is familiar for us. And when people get sick with cancer, basically, including myself at first, we run to an oncologist.
Sure.
And we don't
Everyone
have
does.
anything else to think about but that. And I found out that that wasn't the truth, at least in my case.
Yeah. Well, so George, let's get to know you a little bit here. I know that you were born in Venezuela. Tell us a little bit about, because I want the people out there to kind of get a feel for who you are before we jump right into the book and your circumstances.
Sure. Well, my parents migrated to Venezuela after World War II. My mother's side of the family is Greek, so they migrated from Greece. And my father's side of the family are from Madrid, Spain, and they migrated to Venezuela after World War II and Franco and, the civil war they had there. And the two families met in Venezuela. So I'm a double miracle, two families from Europe going to South America, and they meet, they get married, and my sister and I are born. I was born and raised there. I came to the States when I was 18 to play with a full scholarship. I played NCAA Division I tennis. So as long as I made the team and had good results, I still have my full ride scholarship. So I was able to study software engineering, and I met my honey here in college in Las Cruces, New Mexico State University. We got married. We had our first kid here in Las Cruces, and then I got hired by IBM, and at that time, the office that I was going to report to was in Boca Raton, Florida. So my parents had a property, an apartment in Miami, and they loaned it to us. So Alex, my wife, Nima, and myself just moved to Florida. I would just drive 40 minutes to Boca Raton. And that's how we started my marriage and my career. I started with IBM. Later on, I keep progressing in technology. I became an associate partner with Accenture, which later one of the partners left in the dot-com era in the 90s, and 1997 to 2000. And, he recruited me and became a client partner there. And I actually moved myself. I had an MBA. I got an MBA at the University of Miami, 25% paid by Accenture at the time, and I paid the rest. And so I kept progressing, and I shifted from being 100% technical, a technical architect, programmer, to going to management. And I ended up in my almost 30-year career, last 5 years, I was a chief technology officer. And at that time, starting in the middle of that, is when I got inflicted or diagnosed with cancer. But I must say, this is very, very important to say, because it's not when you say the story, well, yeah, it's compelling. And, my Greek side of the family, folks, and I don't know that I share that with you, Paul, but since I was 4 years old, I remember my grandfather passing of cancer, colon cancer, his two brothers passing of colon cancer. They all migrated to Venezuela. Then my grandmother's two sisters, and this is, as years pass, they also passed from cancer. My mother's cousin, which was my godfather, I'm a Catholic Christian, and he passed from cancer, and so forth. Later on, I lose my uncle, my mother's brother, from cancer, and 3 weeks before I was diagnosed, my mother passed from cancer. So when I looked at my family landscape, the Greek family landscape, I really felt like I was doomed, and I'm thinking, man, this is going to plague me. And
Yeah.
actually it did. It just, so when I was diagnosed, I could not even mourn my mom. My 5 kids, I have 5 kids with my beautiful wife. We had 2 boys. On the third pregnancy, we had twin boys. So all of a sudden we went to 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
And then I remember the obstetrician saying, hey, you guys, she had to do a C-section for the twins. Do you want me to tie you up? And my wife looked at me and I said, well,
How old were you at that point after the twins?
after the twins, I was, they were born when I was 30. I started pretty early, Paul.
Yeah, so you were still pretty young, though. Like, it wasn't like you were 45. Yes. I mean, you were pretty young still.
Yes. Well, I'll let you know, right? This past October, I turned 64. So, but at that time, I was pretty young. Thank you. I was pretty young. I was 30 when the twins were born. And then in 1994, we decided not to tie my wife, she's not. And then in 1994, we had our first and only girl, Claudia, which will be 30 now in December. So, I say all this because when I was diagnosed, they were going through the trauma of losing their grandma, their dear grandma. They were living in Venezuela, but they were coming all the time. They were doing well off. We would go down there. We would send the kids over there in the summers so they learn Spanish and so forth. So when I was diagnosed, I really said, man, if you remember the documentary, The Secret, I think I really brought that disease on me because, by the way, cancer it is known now that it's not hereditary. What's hereditary is our lifestyle, our culture,
Sure, yeah.
And but after I went through the emotional clutter, a roller coaster, this is no way it can happen. Why me? Anger, frustration, a little fear, anxiety, 5 little kids, young kids from 13 to 7. And, but, it came to a point, and I have to share that when, like I said, I came here to play tennis. I grew up around tennis. My father played Davis Cup, and everybody at the club will say, "Hey, Georgie, you're gonna be like your dad or better, right?" And so I had this kind of like pressure that have to be at least like my dad. But what I'm saying here is that tennis, I started competing at the age of 10. And tennis is not like a team sport whether you win, everybody wins. You lose, everybody loses. You could tie as well in certain sports. Tennis, you either kick somebody's butt or your butt is kicked. There's no other. And, that's interesting because then you grow up with the mindset of competing.
Right.
It's just like it's you alone. And I think that really helped me. It came to a point about a month after I was diagnosed that I said, no way. I'm going to beat the odds. I'm going to be the first person in my Greek family that survives this thing. And I just started my journey. Like everybody else, I have doctors in the family. My daughter's grandparents, godparents, both are physicians. One is a surgeon, and also they came parents from Italy that migrated to Venezuela. But we grew up together playing tennis, so forth. When I when I got sick, just we had, we had this guy's, um, pretty scared. I had
Yeah.
to really protect myself because doctors are really the worst coaches in these things. They seem to know, quote unquote, more than us. And, but I proved them wrong. I started going through it. And then on year 8, with my first craniotomy, that was my 8th surgery. I fought the disease for 10 years, Paul,
I
and I
know.
had 10 surgeries on me. But of those 10 surgeries, 4 of them were in my brain. And, 2, of the 8, and then I had 2 gamma knives trying to get, so everything was fine except 2 tumors in my back lobe, in my brain, that were not operable. And, so they kept checking on those. And, but I had a 10-year journey. And, I took the attitude of seeing cancer as my toughest opponent. And in tennis, we learn how to study our opponents and trying to get edges with good nutrition, good mental rehearsing, and so forth. It's really a mind game at the end of the day. You can see 2 folks, even in the pros, hitting the ball, and you say, well, who's better? They're the same.
Yeah.
But they play, and there's one guy that usually has the edge in the head, So yeah, that's me. On year 8, I decided, against all my family. My wife was, also in the medical world. She's a biologist, but she was working as a, ultrasound tech for obstetrics. And, so when I really just kind of mentioned, after my first craniotomy, they gave me this chemo that finally they say would penetrate the brain, because the brain is very, very protective for toxic stuff. But this one, they were able to go through it. So it was on, oral. There were these, capsules. By the way, $1,000 per capsule.
Wow.
I gotta say that. And this is year 8. So all my CTO stuff and 401ks and IRAs and college funds, we had to tap into all of that because, this thing really drains you.
Sure.
Any disease, but, as you're trying to survive, and it's 10 surgeries and 4 craniotomies, I can't even imagine the total cost at the end of those 10 years for obviously the insurance company. But, with me, we were in pretty much a lot of debt, medical health care debt. But on year 8, these capsules I was taking, it was Monday through Friday, 1 a day, take a break for a week, and then Monday to Friday, the second,
Okay.
cycle. On my second cycle, that one Monday, I really thought this thing was going to kill me. It was like, I had, I don't know, 4 or 5 capsules of speed or something. I was so electric and, nauseous and dizzy. And I thought, man, this is killing me. This is it. I'm not going to go through this loop again, this cycle of, thank God for the surgeries, because if not, you and I will not be talking, Paul. So I approached my wife and I said, look, I'm going to stop this. I have, I've been doing a lot of mental rehearsing, meditation, prayers. Like I said, I'm a person of faith. And I tapped into one important thing, is to realizing that it was my fault. I kept asking for a long time, why me? You gave me
Yeah.
5 beautiful children, and now you want to take me. And now at 42, I was 42 when I was diagnosed. And, and so at the moment when I realized that I was going to go natural, and everybody, no, George, you're crazy. You gotta keep going this way. I said, guys, my intuition, which we lose this power. All of us have this beautiful gut feeling that we kind of like start giving that power to others, our teachers, parents, uncles, pastors, whoever, then doctors, which is really a mistake. We go and we give all our power, internal power, to this doctor. And whatever the doctor says, including, hey, we have nothing else to do, go home and die or do something else. Oh, now after 8 years or 7 years, or I have clients that have been fighting it for 4 years. Then they tell them, we have nothing else to do for you. Go try something else. Oh, now after all this money and stuff. But that's a different story. In my case, I made the decision. I went and talked to my oncologist, and this guy's an angel, because some oncologists for my clients, they say, well, if you don't want to do treatments anymore, because now your scans are clear, but I will not work with you. I suggest you keep going in case he comes back. What kind of statement is that,
Yeah, no, really.
And I tell my clients, look, use your power, your intuition. Your intuition is your best coach. So, yeah, I talked to him. He says, are you sure, George, you want to do this? About 3 times. And I go, yes, doctor, but I would appreciate it if you continue to do follow-ups for me. And he said, sure. And if along the way you decide things are not working out, we can try something else. Maybe by then there's something new.
Yep.
So he agreed. And on I went to my holistic journey. And Paul, I had to say, when I was telling you about, being in somebody that really, really understand. I'm a person of faith. I'm spiritual, but also I grew up with the Jesuits, and good or bad, I love to have communion and stuff like that. But one of the things that really made everything happen was for me to say, hey, this is my fault. I got myself in this situation. But if I got myself in this situation, just like having a losing streak in any sport, we can get out of that funk. So I thought, if I did this, I have the power to reverse it. And, of course, everybody, friends, family, doctors in the family, they thought I was losing my mind after that first craniotomy,
Yeah.
And so I did it. And actually, you have the book. The doctor back there that says that I proved them all wrong.
Yeah.
That was the case.
Yeah.
He
Well,
came home.
You talk a lot in the book about multiple things, your faith, which you've already mentioned, but you talk about the pH levels in your body too, if it's more acidic, it's more prone to cancer. And so that's kind of part of the thing that I liked about this book was you mixed all these things together, your faith, science, and then just what makes cancer prosper in your body, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely. That's a great point. And if you allow me to share on that.
Sure.
When I decided that it was really my fault, I really humbled myself, and I say, okay, the doctors, they haven't found any solutions for me. They threw basically the kitchen sink on me and many other clients. Medicine is trial and error. So, once I decided to go, I started to receive what I call angels in the book. There's people that I had no idea they would step forward. But one of them, my best buddy and doubles partner and roommate here in New Mexico State, also from Venezuela, German parents. His wife called me and said, man, I heard that you, and she was in holistic stuff. She was 18 or something, a teenager. And she goes, look, my sister went to this naturopath in Palm Beach, and, she cured. She has no problems now with her liver, and, it'll be great that you go over there. And she gave me the information, and I went. And that's what I learned about the pH balance and with disease. And by the way, on my giveaway, which is I have to say, an awesome package in there. I had to put it because there's several documents and a few guided meditations. I have it on my cloud, but I'll give you the link so the audience and you yourself can, take advantage of what I'm sharing there. But the pH balance, it's really, if you guys in the audience, if you don't remember anything else, remember this, because really it's all about prevention, guys. But if you're sick and you manage to balance your pH, I have to share something first. All chronic disease. I just did a talk in Ontario, Toronto, Ontario. I met a holistic MD. This guy was 3 years going through cancer and nothing was working. So he decided to look else. And now he uses all that he learned to heal in his practice, which is great. He's not a surgeon. He's a medical doctor, but his advocacy is, hey, guys, you can prevent this stuff. So that one thing that is important to know is that all chronic disease, not only cancer, but all chronic disease starts in a body that is inflamed. In other words, there's too much acidity in your tissue and in your whole body. So if you manage to uninflame your body, you will never get sick. That is a guarantee. But if you are sick and you bring your pH balance to normality, you're destroying the environment for the disease to thrive and duplicate. So in time, if you keep your discipline and you're making sure you could actually measure your pH balance, the disease will go away.
Yeah, from that's the pretty much what you did, right, George? I mean,
yes. From the physical component, I did that. But we are a holistic being. And here's another thing that you guys need, maybe already know, but I'll share it. All chronic disease is emotional. They start with emotional clutter, which is linked with your anxiety and your mindset. So the holistic being, we're not just a body. We have a physical body, we have an emotional body, we have a mental body, and we have a spiritual body. Yes. You and I, Robert, and everybody else, soul-wise, we're the same, and we are connected. So this spirituality, by the way, it's you could be religious and not spiritual, or spiritual and not religious, or both. In my case, I'm a Catholic Christian, but it's all about embracing this beautiful planet that was given to us. This Mother Earth that, by the way, has the pharmacy to cure us. That's another thing that I say in the book. I took God's pharmacy to heal. And I did everything I could do holistically to heal myself. And that's why the book actually became a bestseller, because it is not normal to see somebody just defeat, or kind of like saying, enough, I'm not doing this conventional stuff anymore, I'm going this way. And so there's 1 million Georges out there in the United States that went natural and survived. Yeah.
It was inspiring to me. I think I'm looking at my notes here after I read the book. At one point during your cancer journey, they gave you a 4% chance of survival. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. I mean, basically they had you dead, because 4% is pretty much zero, right?
Yeah. This great note that you took in there. I commend you, man. You're a great host.
Well, I don't know about that, but I like to. I've had guests on before where I haven't read their book, and it's kind of a struggle, because I can't get a feel. Like when I read the book, I get a really good feel for you, like said, at every level, right? Learned about your family. You're a very spiritual and religious person. You're an athlete. And then you get into the science of, pH balance. So you were encompassing a lot of things in the book that I would have never gotten if I didn't read it. Right.
It's interesting when we'll talk about that 4%. When I was here in doing college, NCAA Division I tapped into. I did a minor in nutrition. In those days, there was a different they say a different group of champions, Jimmy Connors, be on board, different folks. If you don't know tennis, you know what I'm talking about. But
John
those guys,
McEnroe.
yeah, McEnroe on the female side, Navratilova. But Jimmy Connors and Navratilova wrote some books about eating to win. And so I got interested on that, and I kind of studied. I did a minor in nutrition just to have an edge, an additional edge in my competition.
Yeah.
But about that 4%, that's interesting that you said that. I had, when I found out that I had mets in the brain and that I was going to have my, obviously, thank God that I was going to be able to have a surgery right in here in my front lobe. They had to open from ear to ear, you know, my skull, I guess. And
You look
so
good though.
before,
Still, I don't see. I mean, I don't really see.
oh, well, because it's the lining, but you can see right here, there's one craniotomy, and then I have a scar, which is another thing that is very interesting. They
Yeah.
told me I would have a bunch of cavities, you know, and because
Sure.
the removal, and I only have a little bit right here in front. I'll send you a picture if you want to see that, but about the 4%, I call the doctor, my daughter's godfather, and I say, Stefano, can you? I know you're off today. Can you come over before the kids get back from school? And I want you to get into the New England Medicine Journal of Medicine. You have access because you're a doctor, and I want you to really tell me what my opponent is right at this point. And he went to my brain.
Yeah.
And he came. I said, well, what do you want? I have you some wine. I have wine or beer. He laughed and he said, no, I'll just have a beer. So he comes to the house, and we are in the dining room. I had my computer already on and stuff, and he sits down and he logs in. He starts looking around, and all of a sudden I see that he's just very quiet reading. And you must know that if we have Mediterranean, and you sound like your parents maybe are Mediterranean, Paul.
Yeah. Both sides of my family are from Italy. Yeah,
yes,
I'm all of Italian heritage for sure.
Stefano is Italian Venezuelan, and I am Spanish Greek Venezuelan. But Stefano, it's very 6'4", but very emotional, like everyone, and pretty much that's who we are in the Mediterranean. And so, so he starts shedding a few tears, and I go, "What's going on, man? Let me check. Let me read it." So he gets up. I sit down and I read it, and he says, well, by the way, at the same time that I was going through this, Senator Teddy Kennedy had a malignant melanoma tumor in the brain, and he didn't make it. We both were diagnosed at the same time with that. 6 months later, he was gone.
Yeah. He went fast, if I remember correctly.
He went very fast. Very fast. All the folks that started with me, 7 of them, they went fast. Within 2 years, they were gone. And some with young children. This disease hits everybody. I'll tell you in a second the stats. But so he says, I said, well, let me read it. And I read it, and he says, well, at this point, the patient has a 4% chance of survival, 3 to 6 months, 4% chance of survival. So I get up, and I looked up because I'm 5'11". I look at him up and say, Stefano, I have a question for you. Why can't I be one of those 4? As a matter of fact, I will be one of those 4.
Yeah.
I'm beating these odds. I'm not a statistics. I'm me. I'm not a statistic. And so he kind of smiled. He hugged me. He says, well, you see, that's what God gave you, the disease. Because if he would have given it to me, I would die of fear, of anxiety.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do. This has a lot to do with the mind. It has to do with your faith, which, by the way, faith is really the certainty of what you want, because you know that if you take action, then that source we call it God, most of us, will actually conspire for you, will help you heal. But you have to take action. It's not a magic wound.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, well, we could go forever, but that 4% was really a game changer in my mind as well, because I never really saw myself going. I said, no way, I'm going to beat this guy. And, so I kept going through things. And then I found out, I kept asking myself, Paul, why do I get a recurrence, another recurrence, and another recurrence? 8 years now, and sometimes twice in 1 year. So 2 surgeries in 1 year. And, yeah, anyway, and it just why? So I really like taking action. I became an expert in Google. At that time was already pretty good in the 2000s. I was diagnosed in 2002, and I really tapped into 2 things happened. Another angel gave me a book titled Emotional Intelligence. And I told you all disease is emotional. That's how now reading other things, epigenetics, the biology of belief. There's so many books that if people have a chance to read, even in audio, because nobody has time to read it, it seems these times. So I really started to explore the emotional side of my disease. And here's the deal. Recurrence will continue to happen until you find the root cause of how that disease ended up in your body. Whatever that root cause is, it usually is a combination of your stress and stuff, but that's really emotional.
Right.
And particularly on the forgiveness side. So somewhere I read about that and I said, you know what, this makes sense. I have some people that I have to, forgive. And so I took time to reach out to these folks. One was passed away, so we had to do surrogate work. But, so I said, hey, you know what? And guess what? They didn't even remember. But I said, look, I forgive you. I forgive you. But I talk about forgiveness in the book.
You do. That's actually I actually have that as one of my notes, by the way. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Oh, okay. So I forgave people and I asked for forgiveness as well, from errors that I made. And then the toughest was forgiving myself. But the moment that I clear that clutter, Paul, I stopped having recurrences. And so my situation was definitely emotional. I became a nutritionist, and I can tell you some things about that in a second. But also last October, I finished I got my diploma as a hypnotherapist. So I added this hypnosis into my protocol, into my program, my 90-day program, which is fantastic because we go there and clear the emotional clutter through. Yeah. And hypnosis is nothing more than a deep state of meditation where you are in control of the client and you are in your subconscious mind. You could actually identify why you have some of those beliefs, and we work on reframing. And so, right now, I can say, I work with people that are dealing with cancer or the threat of it. I do help them if they take action, transform their health and vitality, because I'm pretty booked. I'm very, very careful that the person is really willing to do the work. It's like anything else. New Year's resolution. I have this intention, but intention without action becomes an illusion.
Meaningless.
Yeah, so meaningless.
I think I may have mentioned this too when we first spoke. I don't have any empirical data for this, but I do believe, and you're on this, I know you're going to agree with me on this, is that the way we heal ourselves today is going to be very different than the way we heal ourselves in the future. And I think our mind is going to play a big part in that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you may, there's 12 rules of the mind. I do have a chapter. Man, you have some great questions. I have a chapter in the book. You read it. It's called A Gift for Life. I was a senior. I was going to be a senior. I finished my junior year, and I was going to come back to New Mexico to play my senior year at NCAA, and I'll obviously finish my studies. And so I played the Venezuelan Open, which usually brings the best players actually of Latin America. There was a few American guys, but not the top guys.
Right.
And it wasn't a professional tournament, but I was seated 32nd, 32 of of 32 seated. I wasn't really supposed to win the tournament or anything like that, but I kept playing really well, and I got to the finals. I beat a lot of people that, quote unquote, I shouldn't be. But then I get to the finals, and I play my role model. I was 23, he was 30, and this guy was, that was one of my role models in tennis. And so I'm playing the guy, and I'm beating him. I'm 2-1. The final was 5 sets. Then on the fourth set, I'm up, and then I lose that. He came from behind and won that set. He went, and he said he was feeling bad, so he needed to go to the bathroom. It took about 15 minutes to come back.
Wow.
And I was getting a little anxious, kind of like, hey, come on, Freddie, come back. So he comes back. I'm up on the 5th set. I'm serving for the match, and he breaks my serve, and we go to 5-0, and then he wins in 4 and hours and change. He wins in 5 sets, 7-5. But what I want to share here, and this is why I call it the gift for life, our common coach that taught us how to play tennis, a French guy, excuse me, Professor Savy, we call him Master Savy. He came to see us, French player, amazing player, and he became a coach in Venezuela. And he came to see us. It was an honor to see this guy in there. And so we finished, and we both, after we got our trophies, we went to embrace him and say hi. Freddie left, and my name in Spanish is Jorge. And this guy is French, and he goes, Jorge, you were playing so good. School in the U.S. I made you a lot better. But you know what? You lost here. You lost in your mind today. And I said, yeah, I agree. I agree. It bothered me that he started loving me, hitting gloves, and I got a little bit anxious about that and trying to win the points too fast. So that was it. I get home. That was Sunday. On Friday, I was coming back to the States because we will start school soon. And I always like to come. Coach wanted us to be here 2 weeks before school started to start, working out, meet the new players. And so I get home on Monday night, and my mom says, hey, Savi, the Professor Savi called you, and he wants to invite you to lunch. And I thought, oh my goodness, what an honor. And he was not teaching at the not even involved with the national junior team, but he was at this amazing hotel. And so I called him, and we arranged to go. And I went Thursday, the day before I was flying back to the States. And we having a great lunch. And again, we talked about the mind, the power of the mind. And he gives me this piece of paper. He said, I couldn't find the book here, but here's the book. And the book's title, my friends in the audience, is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Tom Murphy, written in the 1900s, 1910, 1920. But it's just really another, let's say, Bible in psychology. But what it is, what he explains there is our subconscious mind does everything that the conscious mind, sets to it. So if I say in the present moment, because one of the rules of the mind is that you learn by repetition. And obviously, in this case, this book, he said, you're going to read it. It's going to help you tremendously. It's going to help your tennis. But you know what, Jorge? It's also going to help you later in your life. And that was it. That was a gift for life because he saved my life. I put to action everything that this guy said in there in terms of visualizing, mental rehearsing, and seeing myself. For example, remember that Pac-Man game?
Yep, I do.
Yeah. I used to visualize that creature eating all the tumors in my body, eating them up. I mean, 3 times a day. And because I'm a person of faith, I also would see this merciful Jesus rays. If you see that picture of the mercy, Jesus mercy, he's got like 2 rays from his heart. One is light blue, the other one is light pink. So I would trade the colors, and I would imagine that those rays coming through my head, on top of my head, and going all the way through my feet and getting out from my feet, cleaning out all tumors and all stuff that that were not good for me. And I do have to say that that played a big role in my healing, and that's why I say part of what the giveaway I have is the 12 rules of the mind. The mind doesn't know if you're saying something, if it's true or false. It does what you say, what you visualize, what you think. It does it. So you might as well say things, oh, it doesn't know tomorrow or yesterday. It's in the present moment.
Yeah.
In the beginning, your ego is not gonna, it's gonna say, come on, George, come on, you don't even believe this. I guarantee you, one of the rules is the mind learns by repetition. If you keep affirming that you are healed, you don't say, I'm going to be healed. It doesn't work. The mind doesn't know the future. You saying, I am healed. I am healed. And be patient. Keep doing that 2 or 3 times a day. I guarantee you there is going to be a moment that the doctor is going to say, man, I don't know what you're doing. And I was asked several times that, I don't know what you're doing, George, but keep doing it. Keep
Yeah,
doing
really.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the mental aspect of healing is, I think we're just scratching the surface.
Oh, yeah.
But so I do want to touch on one thing. Kind of, the election is over, and as we sit today, it's in November, so the new president hasn't been seated yet. But he picked an interesting person for the Health and Human Services position in Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I'm not going to tell you I agree with everything he does. But the one thing that I want to see him do is get all the toxins out of our food here in the United States.
Amen.
If he does nothing else, if he can do that one thing, he'll be a success, I think. What are your thoughts on that? Again, without getting political, but I just wanted to mention him because he's a big health nut, eating clean.
Go
ahead.
Yes, Paul. I admire, and I admire him, and I know he's going to have a lot of resistance. You know, I tell you why.
Big pharma.
The pharma industry's major investment is the food industry. Yeah. And the food industry major investment is the pharma industry. So that tells you something. There's no interest. Actually, there is an interest. The interest is for us to get sick. And this guy is going to come and really put an end to this. I remember,
I hope so.
without getting political, but 2 of the first ladies, one was Bush Jr.'s wife, and then Michelle Obama, they both, and actually Bill Clinton, they were advocating for for prevention via what we eat, particularly in public schools. That stuff is really crap. It's just not good. It's not good. And they shut him down. But I think with Bobby Kennedy Jr., I'm very hopeful that changes. I'm very hopeful. I know that it's going to be, let's say, a unifying 4 years, man. We need that in here.
We really do. Again,
so that's it. But he's going to really push this agenda, and that brings me to something else that I can tell you as a nutritionist. I specialize in the digestive tract, and here's one thing in terms of digestion and nutrition. 25%. By the way, I'm not, as a nutritionist, I'm not really like, let's say, extremist. Oh, I'm vegan, I'm paleo, I'm keto. No, man. It's a percentage of protein, good proteins, a percentage of good fats, and a percentage of good carbs. But regardless, 25% of your digestion and nutrition is what you eat. 75% is who you are when you're eating. I give you an example, and I gave a state of health in Toronto for Canada. I did the research, and for the U.S. They're pretty much in the same boat, but they have a much smaller population. But in the U.S., 48%, close to 48% of adults have one or two chronic diseases. One or two men will have cancer in their lifetime, and one or three women will have cancer in their lifetime if we continue this trend. That's the big if. 66% of the nation is overweight, and 33%, that's a big number, it's obese. Now, here's the thing. If we don't change these trends, by 2030, which is around the corner, half of our nation will be obese. And I mean, my question is, how many diseases will come from? That's a chronic disease, but from there, heart disease, diabetes, cancers. So going back to this, 25% is what you eat, and 75% is who you are when you're eating. We are supposed to start, actually, no, we are designed to start our digestion in our mouth. We chew, and the saliva enzymes start processing the food. So when we swallow, we send the stomach the processed food. But if the average American chews 6 times before they swallow, we're not swallowing. That number of people, they're not swallowing processed food. They're swallowing a bomb to the stomach. And the stomach does not know what to do with that. It's not designed to process anything. It's just from there, it takes the process of going through the small intestines and so forth. It goes through the liver, pancreas, and bloodstream, immune system. But guess what? If you ate so fast, the stomach, what it does is it's just send this stuff to fat. For men, it's in the belly. For women, it's more, the thighs and the butt. But that becomes acidic. So with time, your body starts becoming acidic. And what happens when you have an acidic body? A chronic disease comes on any form, heart, diabetes, cancer, maybe 2 things. So it is important to know that we need to chew at least 20 times, depending on what you put in your mouth. If you're having mashed potatoes, maybe 6 times is okay. But if you're having beef or chicken or something that needs more chewing, you have to go to 20 and even 30 chews before you swallow. But guess what? As you're chewing that much, you actually enjoy the flavors of everything, and you're sending the proper nutrition down.
Yeah, I need some help in that area, Jorge.
Okay,
I eat way too fast.
We can talk about it. I have so many.
Yeah. So, but at any rate, well, Jorge, we could probably go on for another hour.
Yes.
Because this is, as I said in the opening, I enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed listening to your story. But for the folks out there that are listening in, if they wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Book a discovery call, or I call it, clarity call. It's completely complimentary, and I could actually offer you to create the beginning of a roadmap to either to your health or to prevention. Okay, because it's the same thing, preventing or healing. If you do this stuff, it's gonna work. So I'll give you some links. Calendly, you could go to my website, and then I'm giving for you and your audience, I'm gonna give you this link that you can go up to my Google Drive and download about $600 worth of coaching tips and documents. There's 2 forgiveness meditation, one for recordings, one for women, one for men. There's the pH balance. I wrote an ebook about a balanced pH on your health. I have a table I call the alkaline table that shows you which foods are acidic, which foods are alkaline. And what I do with my clients, by the way, I teach them how to create or order in a restaurant a balanced pH plate. That's what it's all about. That's,
Yeah.
no more than that. So yeah, I'll send you all these links, and then please tap into this giveaway. There's some great stuff there. There's some tips about sleeping, and that's a problem in the U.S. with having a good sleep. I explain what is the 24 for the sun is a 365 or 66 days of cycle. The moon is 28 days. Us humans is 24 hours. And things have to happen in those 24 hours, particularly the sleeping time, which is designed for detoxing and restoring, not for spending energy digesting your big meal at night. And so there's so many tips. If you're going to eat heavier at night, eat about 2 hours before you go to sleep. So maybe you go to sleep and your digestion is pretty much done. So the energy you're going to use sleeping, your subconscious mind is really working on detoxing you and restoring areas in your body that needs to be restored. That's in there. There's also a how to water guide. We are 70% water. Women is 75%. And basically that's one thing that very few people, get to the levels of water they need to, have daily. So with the Cokes and all this stuff, it's, that's another way to kill yourself. I have to say real quick, one can of soda, my friends, one can of soda has between 9 and 12 teaspoons of refined sugar. Okay.
Unreal.
So if you have one kind of soda, you need to drink 32 glasses of water to alkaline your body again, to get your balanced pH again. So imagine those people that actually have it for breakfast, then at lunch, and then give me the super size. We're killing ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Unbelievable. Well, hopefully you can help in getting this country back on track, Jorge. I think I definitely learned a few things today. Some it's funny. Some of the things you kind of know, but you get away from. Right? It's always good to get reminded, get slapped in the face, and say, "Hey, this is what the changes you got to make." So, but we'll end on that note, Jorge. Like I said, I think you and I could go for another hour or two if we had to, but hopefully, you never know. Maybe we'll have a part 2 one of these days.
Sure, anytime we'll do it.
All right. Well, Jorge, thanks again for being on the show. Really enjoyed it. I hope the audience enjoys the show. Like I said, I always like a good story on my shows. I think people are really drawn to that. And that's a wrap for another edition of the Business Brains and the Bottom Line podcast. Paul D'Allegro signing off till next time.